Indigenous Rights Radio, because knowledge is power.
The 2024 Indigenous Media Conference, organized by Indigenous Journalists Association, took place from July 25 to 27 in Oklahoma City, United States. The event brought together Indigenous journalists, media professionals, and experts from around the world to discuss and address the pressing issues faced by Indigenous media practitioners. The conference also provided an opportunity to celebrate their contributions and achievements. Cultural survival was also present at this landmark event and asked Indigenous journalists to share their experiences, challenges, and successes in covering Indigenous communities and their efforts in collaborating for Indigenous rights.
Aloha, my name is Ku'uwehi Hiraishi. I'm a former reporter of Hawai'i Public Radio, now just doing my own thing as a Native Hawaiian journalist. The Indigenous people of Hawaii, right now, there are more Native Hawaiians outside of the islands actually than there are inside remaining in Hawaii, and that's due to high cost of living. So there is a huge diaspora on the continent, the US continent, and that's becoming, that's part of the issue, that the disconnect to culture and to land for those individuals is a challenge. Other challenges, we Native Hawaiians end up like highest incarceration rates. We're also facing some of the most least access to healthcare. And there are continued with the high cost of living. There is challenge for Native Hawaiians to remain in Hawaii, but also the idea of land dispossession on account of just American occupation is a constant challenge as well. Some of the challenges of being faced by the Native Hawaiian people, the Indigenous people of the islands, is like many other Indigenous communities who have been colonized and continually occupied by imperial forces like the United States. There is a high cost of living, a lack of resources, also a lack of access to things like healthcare or media or just challenges of self-determination in being able to revitalize our language and bring back our culture. We're seeing hurdles and successes there, but it's a constant challenge of survival in the islands. There isn't too much back home in Hawaii in terms of Indigenous-led media. We do have an on-demand television network called Oiwi TV that was created by and for Hawaiians, and so a lot of what they've done, that's a former employer of mine, was to do more long form content versus daily news, which can be a lot of resources or demands a lot of resources. Indigenous led or Indigenous media controlled really gives us an opportunity as Indigenous people to control the narrative, right? To say, to present the news and the story in the way that makes sense to us, and that properly and appropriately, accurately, I should say, represent what we're going through as Indigenous people. In Hawaii specifically, the idea of representation is often, and for a long time, has been controlled by mainstream media, painting this idea of an idyllic paradise where everyone's happy and the natives dance, and the natives are sort of a fluff piece and added extra. Whereas, for centuries, I'm 72nd generation Native Hawaiian from these islands, and we've been able to sustain ourselves with that Hawaiian perspective of living with the land and in sync with the land. And in the last 100 and 20, 30 years of American occupation. That's completely changed. Climate change is going to be a huge challenge. And so having Indigenous media tell the stories of the current day challenges from that Hawaiian lens is crucial to our ability to remain and sustain ourselves in these islands. Some of the challenges that Indigenous-led media in Hawaii are facing include the lack of resources, the lack of funding, the lack of time as the only sort of Native Hawaiian journalist in the newsroom, because you are constantly a resource for everyone else. You don't have the time to seek these collaborations, right? And even if you do pitch them, your editor, who may not be Indigenous, will push back and not have the buy-in of those sort of decision makers. And so the promise for collaboration and the power of collaboration, I see it amongst Indigenous people specifically, or Indigenous media across the globe, as something that could become our competitive advantage in terms of leveraging what limited resources we do have to tell the stories of each other's communities in an accurate and authentic way. The idea of self-determination and sovereignty in discussions that we've had back home in Hawaii for Native Hawaiians is there's a strategy where we all sort of infiltrate, as Native Hawaiians, these spheres of influence, whether it be government, medicine, or media, because once we have more Native Hawaiians or Indigenous people in these spheres of influence, real change can happen, including further collaboration, but also a more perhaps accurate and authentic representation of our peoples in media.
For more information on Indigenous rights, visit ces.org/rights, and also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and Facebook.